Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here, like talk about for digital designing, and basically that for like digital design, and well, what does it basically mean? And you see right here is with like the sketch right here, the sketch right here. And it basically shows right here of me right here, and I know that this right here would be like a pen sketch right here. This pen sketch would show is to where that if I were to be sitting down and what you call just kind of what you call, I don't know if we call it daydreaming or anything like that, but sitting on the carpet or just sitting in my bedroom. If I could be in my bedroom just doing something and kind of just wandering, and but on the other hand that this right here will be an example right here of some work that I did on paper, and some freehand drawing right here of me, and think about like I added right here a gradient in the background right here. But if anybody wants to or like anything about designing, especially anything about designing, if it's going to be web design, or if it's going to be a digital design, or if it's going to be anything about maybe graphic designing or any type of designing, about the basic principles about the important reasons about it, and some that may like one or two are like what's really the main topic, and I guess the main purpose about it is to where that that for anything that we're doing and knowing about for how we use the tools and then the programs especially. So this right here that I would have been using a few about maybe about 4 or 5 different color pencils right here to draw this picture right here, and as well as the paint tool with the Photoshop program. So if we'll be looking at this right here and thinking necessarily to where that that's Matthew McGuire right there, and you have right here's the score for GPA score of 89.90%, and I have right here for digital design. And for like the degrees, so like I mentioned before, is to where if we had a degree in almost everything, then more likely that we will be able to teach almost a lot of people almost everything, and then that would maybe take anybody about maybe 12 years or so, maybe 15 years to get it all together, if it includes like maybe a nurse's degree, or if it's pediatrician, or if it's mechanic, or if it's going to be a scientist, or if it's anything about that sociology, or if it's any type of special degree in such as German, or if it's psychology or social working or anything like that. If we would have at least maybe 10 or 15 degrees in a different variety, and then I'm sure that if I like wanted to, you would be able to teach a few people a lot of things, especially. But this right here would be like a gradient, some gradient work right here. Like have right here is a rainbow right here. You have right here for the background. If anybody wants to, where back whenever I was young, that thought that you would see a lot of those, especially in the sky. After it rained, and then you would see a lot of these. Like you're like wanting to where that if one of those rainbows would appear, maybe in the backyard or in the front yard or wherever, that you wouldn't want to reach up and touch it or anything like that. But really, that did I get my idea by looking at a rainbow? I guess maybe sort of, kind of, but a lot of it was about is toward it. Showing about how far I'll be willing to come along to her, anything free-handed to her. That a lot of the assistance that I needed whenever I was in school, especially. And I could probably tell anybody here that. With any kind of designing work that I have, any type of talent that I have, is to where a lot of that I got into her, to where that I, any assistance that I needed in school by help with the understanding about, math or science or maybe history projects or anything like that, anything about maybe behavior or anything like that, that that there would be a teacher there or somebody that would be there to help me out, especially with anything that I needed help with, anything about tutoring assistance or anything like that. But with the drawing, though, with freehand drawing, it basically gave me, like I would say, the idea about to where that anything about that I wanted to go ahead and see about the anything that did not require any tracing or anything special attention, like to where that be able to draw something artistic, and is like, can I get an idea about something? So this was right here was an idea right here that I'm sure that while I was drawing this, I was thinking about that picture of me when I was about maybe 2 years old, of the dreams of the night. So this was right here was me that I'm like everybody say that yeah that you did not even have your shoes and socks on. So if anybody warrant toward it, yeah that if your parents want to take you anywhere particular, like maybe to the museum or to the park, and you're like warrant tour that yeah are you ready to go? I can well don't even have my shoes and socks on, or if anything about maybe at the if your parents or anybody would have taken a picture of I could say that, yeah, that they got you up one morning while you were in bed, and you're like, hey, it's like, no, but that they want to take you maybe to the mall or somewhere. But on the other hand, that for any type of skills related to like graphic designing or digital designing, and we're like wanting to work basically what is digital design necessarily, or any type of designing, and using a variety of programs, about 4 or 5 different programs and tools, and I know that it would probably take me a little longer to go through a lot of the tools, but if you had like maybe the burn tool, and as well as the paint bucket, as well as the gradient tool and the paintbrush and the spot healing tool, the clone stamp tool, all those other tools, and then using a type of source file, and as well as other programs especially. So this right here would be an example right here of a sketch that I went ahead and worked on right here of paper. And this could maybe be what you call work by crayon, or maybe by, if it's going to be a little bit by maybe stencil art, but a lot of the stuff right here is my work in freehand. So this right here that I went ahead and scan right here is this picture right here. You work by pencil, and so anybody that may want to, or that the main purpose, I say the principle about digital designing is that that knowing that you're pretty much, if you want to call it like you're pretty much putting a part of the work together by scratch. So you're not really starting by a template or nothing, but you're really starting by is to where that you're going to be building something. It's like just by working with the different pieces, and like with your work, for what you can do, with what you can do with your own time, and then for anything else that can go further from there, such as if I'm going to be drawing something freehand, if I want to maybe include like maybe type of English writing especially. So a lot of the stuff that we see right here, it looks pretty clear, but we can probably tell that a lot of it is measured by for pixels, and I know that the study about digital designing is to where this stuff, a lot of the stuff right here looks pretty clear, but then it could be what you call using a like like a JPEG or like any type of file that is used to where like it is it was on paper, but until it was saved into a file after it was scanned, and then it's like for JPEG. But then whenever you upload it into Photoshop or maybe illustration program or maybe InDesign, that it'll be using like a different like a type of a file format you'll use for like for the program. So the type of program could be for like a if it's for like Dreamweaver for like a GIF type file, or the the InDesign type up GIP or something like the type file, and it's converted into it's like if you want to say the transform your type tools especially. So a lot what we see that that's using a type of file, and like I say, is to where a lot of the stuff that's happening right here, including the colors, and as well as the different layers, if we want to use them like for like a pronounce like for layers especially. So a lot of this work right here that we may see may be all in one piece right here, but then thinking about the number of tools and the different your files, it's like a different with this it goes from like a JPEG to like this right here could also be like say different tools, and including the artboard, especially the artboard that was used especially just to be able to create all this stuff right here, and just to be able to mount the gradient, and as well as use the paint tool especially. So for the main purpose of us, like for graphic designing, and like for any type of artwork, is to where that a lot of the work from it takes us in like on many different directions especially. And we may have heard that before, to where the principle about is like the topic about for graphic designing or for digital designing means like for lots. and you're like worrying toward it really about how people, the way people look at it, and then think about it's like for like all from what the artist does and the tools and programs that they use especially. But on the other hand, that this right here is an example right here of me that I would hand you right here in freehand, and I guess the goal could be is toward it show a lot more for what you could do with these programs. That this right here could have been maybe a sketch right here that I may have kept around for about 5 years, and it's like hey, that's me right there. This is my story, and then if I decide to use a program like Photoshop and or Illustrator or InDesign or maybe Dreamweaver to talk about a little bit more about his tour. If I go to school maybe for a digital design degree or maybe graphic design degree, and I basically show the source of work done using about 2 different programs or using about maybe 4 or 5 different tools just to be able to show the types of designs as well as the language. And it's like if it's like gratitude and it's other sorts of it's like of actions especially. So those actions could also include like shapes as well as for patterns as well as the other types of work especially. So if anybody warns us toward it, yeah, that art more likely that to some of us means all about just a coloring book. And I started basically just by an activity book, and there's a lot more. There's a lot to what we can use art for necessarily. And I know if this was where he was me speaking right here, and if anybody warrants to where this right here like be Matthew speaking right here, and you're like warrant to where if anybody warrants to where this right here was Matthew speaking right here, and if I were to be speaking about to where like for art basically what does art basically mean, and like with anybody that they're like warned to where that whenever you first heard of it that it was something that was kind of related to like an activity book. So whenever you first you may have heard about it from a while back about as to where like anything about for like if it's going to be Dreamweaver or if it's InDesign or if it's maybe illustration work, we may have heard about as to where that art though that we may have used a type of designing work based on any type of graphics that we've seen on the computer monitors or something like that. And like back especially back in the early maybe 1970s that we may have seen a lot of the graphic designing maybe on if you want to call it maybe on the dishes or any type of a if it's going to be anything about maybe on the paper on the printing the printing machines back then that you may have seen a lot of times on the paper sources or anything like that. Anything about maybe advertisements that they have on like the products that you could buy at the store or something like that. But company is like any type of printware or anything like that. But they know about it like for the computer monitors especially. But for like some kids that may think about the source of art that they may be used to would be the kind on the coloring book or maybe finger painting. But I know with me though is toward anything if it's anything about digital design that basically like a lot of the work that I'm doing especially is to where how it's converted and transformed knowing about the work that you do by paper and then you're going to be doing more work with it using like a Photoshop program or illustration program. So that's just the thing though is to where that for anybody that weren't or about for any type of degree and study if it's going to be about digital designing and anybody that wants to what you call buy your work and knowing about understanding a little bit about what your work is about. And so I don't I may not know about what the ingredient is for like say how do you make a rainbow, and that's like say like a type of science project. But on the other hand, if like anybody warns us toward water vapor and sunlight that basically to where you can create like a mist, you say you've seen like a rainbow, and a lot of those colors of a rainbow that you're like wonder since you were a kid that you may have seen one of those even from a balloon that you're like you've seen a rainbow, and you may have seen something in particular to where that you've seen something maybe on TV, and I know some of the stuff that I even watched on TV, like every Saturday morning or so, whenever I was watching TV, that you see people drawing something freehand, especially on Etch-a-Sketch, and as well as on anything related to any type of drawing device, and you would watch it for about 30 minutes, and you're like wondering toward it, yeah, that, and I know, like with anybody, if they heard that before, it's like, yeah, that how safe is it to do it, to do that type of stuff at home, and you're like wondering toward anything that you may see on TV, if it's going to be cook shows or so, but on their hand, that they might say is toward it, yeah, if like, well, go ahead, it's like if you want to go ahead and get an idea for what you want to draw, like anything such as anything creativity, it's like for like creative for life, especially is that anything that meaningful, especially. So this was right here was me right here sitting on the carpet right here, and have right here is that this right here was me right here on the carpet, and thinking as to where if I were to be in my bedroom necessarily, and thinking as to where that I have an idea for like something about as to where I want to show some of my friends of some of my talented work, especially something from a coloring book, and it, in the coloring book that could say is to where that do you have an idea for a certain character in mind, such as anything about as to where that you'll create you'll give yourself an idea for anything about what you call like maybe sticker patterns. So if there's anything about in the coloring book that has anything to do with like what you call like making up your own character, or maybe solving a puzzle, or maybe building something or anything like that, and that would be something which would cause anybody to say that really would kids spend more time with that, or would kids just spend more time what you call just messing around, working with a few colors or anything like that. And so it's like with any source of art though is to where for like digital design that that if we're going to be what you call it, and I know sometimes that some designers that they may say is to where if we're going to be just experimenting around, that what's the fastest way to learn the basic skills and understanding about the type of degree is to where that if we're going to be what you call studying about what you got to do, and as well as and then some that may say that there's really a difference between it, what you call for what you like to do, and then for what you got to do, especially to where there's going to be requirements, and especially to where any clients that want to see this type of work from you, and especially that for what you would strongly recommend, especially. But this right here, of course, will be right here is my freehand work right here. If anybody wanted toward it for any type of digital designing, but what does it basically mean? And like, yeah, that with my freehand work right here done with pencil, and after I scan this and upload it into a Photoshop, and doing it, and a few more colors to it, and maybe if like anybody say that, yeah, you add like any type of a language text or anything like that, or maybe anything 3D effects or anything like that. I know there's probably quite a bit more stuff I can do to this right here. So like especially like a screensaver, and I know I was even thinking about if I want to show some examples, maybe of like a screensaver, or maybe like a little guide, if like anything that we want to use it for, such as to where that anything about maybe guide mark or anything like that, guide mark, some type of mark to where it would be like a little logo or so that would show up on the screen or some sort. But this right here, yeah, would be me right here, and this right here is like some work right here that I went and worked right here. And if anybody wants, is to where that basics about being a digital designer is to where it goes from paper, from paper to a program, from program to maybe a website, or like anything about anything finished about the tools, and as well as any type of settings, as well as anything about documentation that you use, especially just to be able to form those. And a lot of that, some of it has anything to do with pixels. And so like any type of pixels, especially any type of teeny tiny squares that you would likely see inside of a work of art right here. So I know that with any type of study though, especially with the digital technology nowadays, that you're like wanting toward it, you see it pretty clear now, but then maybe if you zoom in quite clearly, then knowing about it is toward it from how the types of work that we see based on the files, especially that we see necessarily. That if it's going to be, let's say, the JPEG, and as well as that for like anything that's converted from a scan or from a picture taken, that the types of technology that we see from the work, especially. So if we see this right here is like for anything about rainbow right here, and then they have right here is a score for 89.90. So really, anybody that like wanted to, anything that keeps us busy, maybe for about 5 hours total, and like doing about it's basics about art and designing, is that really that when we first and then the way I do this right here is that there was something on my lap. So let's just say if I had a coloring book in my lap or any type of laptop in my lap right here, and anybody wanted to wear it, yeah, is there something more that could be done with this work right here? With this work of art right here, one of those would be is to where yeah, if you want to go ahead and maybe add like maybe some color to it right here, I might go ahead and right here, I might add just a little bit of color right here. If this was right here was like a little activity book that I was holding right here. And if anybody wanted to, where yeah, an activity book to where that all you really had to do in this activity book was to where you just add like maybe a few stickers and match them up, or say with the. But then some that may say that that there's something much more that you want to do with that work right there. There's something much more that you want to do with that right there. You want to go ahead and with this activity book, you want to go ahead and maybe there's like a program that you want to use online to where that you can maybe connect with a friend, and then you can say it's like the way, hey, that I have my degree in digital design. That this is this right here is something that I was working on, and knowing about anything else that I can maybe add to this, and as well as anything that has anything to do with maybe for designing work, any tools that I may be familiar with, any type of file formats that I may be familiar with, as well as any type of idea for anything that I want to change about it. So I guess the whole purpose about for digital designing and any type of graphic designing is a tour that you're like one tour that for basically having about the amount of control that you have with the work that you're doing. And I guess you could probably say is to where that I guess that's another way of how to describe it too, is to where the amount of control, the amount of, amount the amount of control the artist has for the work in particular. So if anybody wants, is toward the amount of control that an artist would have for say the amount of work that's shown, especially. So if we like wanted to where that for any type of art that an artist is going to be working on and thinking about, is to where that really about that from all the work, and that there's a lot of work, and I know it's a lot of work too, basics about for any type of designing work. And really, why, just like a cooking recipe, why would anybody want to mess with all this stuff right here? Why do people really want to mess with all the tools and all the programs? It's like, make something nice and easy and simple. And one thing that more likely that keeps me going is just toward how much talent I see into the work, especially. So the amount of control that I may have, especially with the amount of skill and talent as well. So if anybody were worried toward it, yeah, that leave it at that. You draw something freehand, and then you're gonna go and keep it in a folder or a case and show a few other people. Leave it at that. It don't need to be uploaded into Photoshop. It don't need all the work done on the tools, and etc. etc. But then on the other hand, that purpose about the job would be is toward, if anybody wants, is toward that in order to be able to share the information, as well as anybody who wants to buy the information about us, toward anything that they may see is toward it. Yeah, this right here you have right here is the character right here, like anybody say that that you feel like if it's going to be like a pronoun or a verb, the type of language. If it's going to be for Matthew McGuire right here, sitting down on the carpet reading a book, but then there may be some more source of skill and information, especially that could be provided with this type of work right here. So if anybody warns us toward, for digital designing, that that anything based on for like that type of artist though, from how they work and manage something, especially work done on those programs, especially if they are skilled with about at least 7 or 8 different programs or maybe 10 different programs, if they are familiar with like the tools that they're using, especially for converting something, and as well as the settings especially. This seems like a lot of work, and a lot of work to where, like with any type of designer, that it can keep them busy, maybe for the whole afternoon, about as to where that from how much work that's put into it, especially. But just think about it for how much they see into the work, especially. So the amount of control that an artist would have, and some that may say is to where really that if you're really thinking that you're really getting anywhere or not. But what I see right here is like that this was right here was me right here, and the amount of shape and designs as well as control that I do have, especially with like this work right here that this was right here was me when I was in kindergarten. And if anybody wanted to explain the stories to her, that how you got the talent from ever since you were very young to where this digital technology, and some that like wanted to where what do we see the main principle right here? Do we see skill, talent, and the amount of control, or just kind of talking about the stories to where that Matthew's been in this into this since he was young, and it's been like that. It's been in his career since then. And then another topic I can maybe talk about too is to where that for anything about his tour, that whenever he drew something, and then he kind of which call it see how far you can come to where that you actually get an idea, you taking a pen and pencil and actually drawing out like a picture of, like, if I want to draw something, draw myself, and maybe draw a bird in the background of some sort. So what all do we see necessarily in any type of design work? And so that's basically like the whole purpose of us, to where that if anybody say that what do we see about this necessarily, and it seems like it's all about the ideas, the amount of ideas that you could put in one piece, and then whenever people look at it and they're like thinking about hey, that's cool looking. So art can maybe taken in many different directions, especially for like digital designing, but there may be only be maybe a few purposes about it, to where understanding about the programs and understanding about that for a lot of the work that you're doing. A lot you may have worked some of the stuff right here by paper, but they say that that a lot there's not a whole lot of paper really that after it's converted into like like a PDF file or any type of a JPEG or any type of file format like that, that it's basically used into like a type of file, like a file setting. So it's saved into a file. It's saved into a digital format. So you're like warranted to it that anything about with paper though, that anything that's if you're like, say that you started you were using paper, but then you're like, say no, this is no longer on paper. This right here is using the type of file, say it's right here, like if it's your pixels or if it's any type of digital formatting, and using the programs right here, and that you import into a program and using the different tools and settings just to be able to do this type of work right here. So if anybody wonders as to where this right here looks just like that sketch that you were working on paper, but that what we actually see right here could contain a different type of source, and what the source could be like measured by pixels or any type of a transformation from like a scanned into worked into a file. So a lot of stuff right here is to where that electronic files, and for anything about is to where that I know that for the type of definition I'm looking for is to where after a file is scanned and then it's converted into like a GIF, or if it's or a GIF type file, and then basically you're using about 4 or 5 different programs to be able to open up these files and do more editing with. So we may think necessarily to where that we actually work one activity and thinking as to where that there is no more jobs that could be done with the project, but I guess the whole purpose about digital designing is to where that finding something else that could be used for, especially knowing about the amount of work, the amount of talent that's used for that, especially. So that really, that if anybody warns us to where really, it seems like the whole truth of the matter is to where anything that keeps you busy and anything that shows any type of artistic talent, especially. But understanding about the programs also, but knowing about the programs that you're using just to be able to form the type of work. So whenever it comes to a final finish, and some that may say is toward that you actually see the basic requirements for what needs to be there. So if anything by warrant toward it, yeah, that what do we see basically about the requirements about any type of a, if it's a story theme or any type of a like works of art especially. And you have right here is me right here with the rainbow, and you have right here the gradient right here with me speaking right here, the amount of control that I may say. Is anybody heard that before to where yeah, this is your world, that this is what this is what you could be you explain to the audience, especially for any type of 3D effects. So that art, the way I think about art, really, art can maybe like to say that there's a number of things you can do with these programs to where that sometimes we may not even know where to begin. And the one thing I do know where to begin is to where that as you draw like a portrait of whenever I was very young, using the color pencils, and it's like a sketch right here with a pen about what I would look like right here. One of my favorite pictures, one of my favorite moments, what I can draw from picture in my mind to where if this was right here for like Dreams of the Night, and actually scan it and convert it and then open it up with another program and actually show other audiences about that this is the tools. This is me whenever I was young. These are the tools I was using, as well as here for my degree in study. So with this degree in study, that something I may say is to where, yeah, if you had a degree in almost anything, maybe if I could study by chemistry and as well as science, as well as for engineering or so, you may be able to tell people about, especially. But on the other hand, that if anybody worries as to anything about digital designing, is that with digital design, that it's like if you want to call it like a masterpiece, like an artboard to where that a number of things that are being created and managed as well as for handled, and then for how it's displayed on the computer monitors, especially any type of tablets or so, that anything that's using like the type of files. And so that and I know that that this right here could be, like say, that the main purpose of the puzzle piece right here. You have right here just me right here with the sketch right here, but the disc right here could be about maybe only 3 pieces until that I use like maybe a program like Photoshop, and this could what you call it, become more pieces. And if you're talking about up to maybe 5,000 pieces or so, 5,000 up to 5,000 pieces. And I can go ahead and write this right here, up to 5,000 pieces. 5,000 pieces. And some may say that yeah, that's too many pieces really to keep track of. 5,000 up to 5,000 pieces. And 5,000 pieces really that really that would anybody want to spend their time does anybody here really want to spend their time working with about 5,000 pieces just to be able to form a work of art or designing, digital design or web designing? And does anybody really want to mess with 5,000 pieces just to be able to get the job done, huh? Up to 5,000 pieces, and you're like one to where that yeah, that you think about us to where that see here. I keep thinking of is to where that see here. Let's see. Try that, or if it's okay, making sure it's spelled right. But anyway, but you talk about for 5,000 pieces right here, and 5,000 pieces, and that for any type of puzzle pieces that we're working with, it's like for 5,000, if it's going to be up to 5,000, different. If we want to call it 5,000 layers. And I know for any type of digital designing work, I guess not really by pieces, by layers. So the amount of layers that you're working with, especially, and I know like with anybody who's going to be working with any type of digital design, that you're like oriented that it's like measured by layers. And with these layers, they are created whenever you open up a source of work in another program, and you may create more layers with it, or any type of or what you call it, any type of settings, especially like on Dreamweaver, where you're working with any type of coding matters. So a lot of this stuff, which I know with like any type of designer, that they probably don't even want to mess with it. So what's one thing that we can maybe think about? The question of marriage tour, that how many people really want to mess with this type of stuff right here. And the way I think about it, though, is like really that how many people really want to mess with that. And really, that those people that may think that, well, really, if you want to, if you really want the job done necessarily, and then maybe you would go ahead and mess with it just a little bit, or that if you just want to kind of, if you're really interested in knowing about how it works, especially. So if anybody warns us to where really the one thing that keeps you going is like to where that anything about your work in particular, or anything that you want to see, anything that you may want to see, that they say is to where if you really want to know, if you really want to see about how this works, and then maybe you can go ahead and what you call spend more time with it, just kind of understanding about how the program works necessarily. So that's what I say to you between questions and answers, Hans, to where that between questions and answers, that being by warrants is toward it, yeah, that the basic study about for designing, and for anybody that may warrant to where if that's really what you're going to explain to anybody about, is toward that for how it works necessarily. So you're like warrant to where yeah, for any type of design work that you're working on, and thinking that well, it's all about which, oh yeah, the language, and as well as for what you speak, and as well as that not too many programs, but really that if digital designing or web designing or any type of for animation, or if it's graphic designing, was all about what you wanted, and maybe you would not be aware of maybe about what the clients want, especially. So that's just a thing about what the company wants, and about how what they do at the printing companies necessarily. But anyway, but that's basically what it is that if anybody warns us to where that you may have learned just by the coloring book, but then after you get a job doing that type of stuff, you go through the basic training, and anybody like warned to where that really about that about the job, though, is to where that there may be some things about the job that we likely weren't, to where that that if the job was just about what you call putting together a puzzle piece, and then maybe that for like any type of professional world, and if you want a good paying job, full-time, part-time, then maybe you would need to learn just a little bit more, or need to understand the basic requirements about from what all it is about, is to that knowing about how this digital work the study about the programs that you use, and as well as for the interviews, and like you're working with the clients, especially for any meetings of some sort. So for anything about for digital designing, and I know that for any kind of digital designing that work right here, and I know there was another activity also that I worked a few days ago that I was going to upload to talk about for digital designing, and if like about I talk about for black and white. So if anybody warns us toward does black and white have anything to do with digital designing, but I'm like really about fixing also, and I know that that's another thing I'll go ahead and mention too, is about fixing them, converting the work, and then as well as for fixing. And I know like with anybody that if they're going to maybe warrant toward that the amount of paint tools, and it's like for the progress especially, is that really if there is any type of damage or anything like that, or anything such as anything else, any type of work that could be done with like the photos, or if it's going to be anything about company logos or anything like that, about how to fix a problem, go back and kind of fix something. You got a variety of selection of different tools, and I know I can go ahead and add that too right here, as to where anything about digital design that you're going to have access. Digital is like for tools, and then files. I'll go ahead and put that too. Tools and files. So the tools and files that a designer would have access to. So if we're going to be having if we're going to have like a program installed on our systems, and thinking necessarily to where that yeah, that you know the basics about how it works necessarily. So the tools and then the files, as well as the amount of control that we have, and as well as for 5,000 pieces, if we want to call it for layers, especially. If anybody wants us to where, go ahead and add layers onto that. Go ahead and add layers. So you have right there with layers. Go ahead and then put right there for layers. So yeah, we have a working with layers. So basically layers are basically, if you want to call them like puzzle pieces, or anything about the source of work, any type of a spot, places to where if you're going to be doing editing, those are basically places to where you're placing a lot of your work. It's all kind of what's called divided into groups, and if you want to call it groups, layers, I guess. I'm like, yeah. You really, if I just explain a little bit more of this right here, if anybody warns us to where, yeah, groups. So if we want to use that word in particular, like for groups, and if we actually work the math right here and thinking for like digital design, that any work necessarily for any type of artist is to where anything work that we more likely will be working on, and thinking is toward it, whenever you start working on this, that you would only use just one piece of paper, and then actually using only one type of pen, and then drawing the outline of me right here, and then that this was right here contained a number source of information right here, and you're like, Warren Tour, that really, who wants to mess with that? But really, that if you really want to know a lot about maybe what the company does, it's basically about understanding about the programs necessarily, because really that this can really be a lot of interesting stuff. And I know with like the type of a digital world nowadays, is to where that there's a lot you can learn, especially about the languages, and especially with the programs and stuff like that you can learn about, especially about artwork. So that back when I was a kid, that a lot of times I used to always think as to where that, yeah, it was mainly about as to where that, yeah, you draw something freehand, okay, that looks good, okay, people like it, they only like it for 3 weeks, go on, whichever, if you change your mind, whichever, but then on your hand, using a program like Photoshop and Illustrator is to where that people that take interest in that, and that people can maybe take interest in what you do, and maybe last for about maybe a year, or maybe 3 years at the most, maybe 10 years. So that's just the thing, though, is to where that whenever people understand a little bit more about what a designer does, especially knowing about for fixing, as well as the tools that they use, and then the programs as type of the skill that they know about too. And you're like, Warren Tour, well, was that all that included in the rainbow? You have right here these three different colors of a rainbow, but then you're like, think about it, this right here looks like a mixture right here. Does this mean it's all mixed together? Or does this right here just basically means as to where for what you discovered, as well as for this is how it works right here? So this seems very confusing to almost any artist. But like with me though, I use art for almost everything that I do. Including cooking recipes, bill management. So if anybody wonders as to where that, yeah, that art more likely that means a number of meanings, especially. So that's just the thing, as to where if I would be graded on a lot of the stuff right here, and anybody like say is to where if you want to do like an introduction about for what you discovered and what you invented, especially. But if anybody like say anybody asks, it's like, yeah, welcome to Matthew's bedroom. This is Matthew's bedroom. This is what he discovered or so, and this is what I want to talk about. So if anybody were wanted to, if this was right here was me, if I did not have no shoes and socks on, knowing about I was just in my pajamas, only about maybe 2 or 3 years old, and like wanted to that anybody wanted to if you're gonna maybe have like a birthday party, maybe on the weekend, you're gonna invite a few friends over, and you're like wanting to that, yeah, anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to show anybody about tools, or maybe files, or anything that you fixed, or anything that you discovered, or anything that you created, or any type of activities, or some source like that. So you're like wanting to and if anybody were to come into Matthew's bedroom, especially, what do you think that they would find in there? And it's possible that they would find maybe a few things that they came interested in. It's like knowing about if it's anything about graphic arts or special effects or anything like that. But anyway, anything that more likely that keeps the kids busy and entertained, especially. But on your hand, too, knowing about the important responsibility also. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Mix 25 speaking here, and a top up for a degree. Knowing about it's like for anybody that may say is to where for any degree that we may have is to where if we had a degree in everything, then maybe we would be able to explain to other students too that if a subject becomes too hard, that do the best you can. It's like keep on working hard. And do the best for what you know how. And got any questions, be sure to let somebody know. But anyway, talk about for Matthew Sean McGuire here, and basically study about understanding about digital design. Like Make 25, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.